Hey everyone, welcome to Hotwire Native number 5 live. I am Joe Mazzalotti, and today we're going to take a brand new website that I built from RailsConf, RubyFriends, and turn it into an iOS app and maybe even an Android app with Hotwire Native. So I just got back from RailsConf last week and was very motivated to build and stay in touch with all the people that I met. So I ended up putting together RubyFriends.app, and it's a small service built on Rails, of course, that lets you connect and reconnect with your friends that you made at conferences. So here I can see my profile, and if I were to bring this to a conference, I could click this, share my profile, and then someone could scan my QR code, or I could copy the URL and give it to them. And the way here is that once you have your friends, you can start to create a list of the folks that you met at RailsConf, or at RubyConf, or at RailsWorld. Is that better for the volume there? I just bumped it up a little bit. And start adding some notes about them. So Adrian and I, Avo founder, we both talked. We talked a little bit about developer-focused tools and pricing. So I have some notes there on what we spoke about, and just a really simple way to keep track of all this stuff. Lots of more features are coming soon, but today we're going to focus on building the iOS app with Hotwire Native. But first, a really cool reveal here is that there are already 168 profiles that are public on this platform. So pretty awesome to see that. I only launched this 48 hours ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. So 2 days, and we're already seeing some traction here, which is just so cool, and very thankful to everyone who has signed up and created an account. But enough bragging on that. What we want to do is actually talk about our local machine. So now we're hitting localhost 3000. I have this app running. I'm main user. I'm still using my picture because it's just a lot easier. And then I have some seeded database folks in the database here. And we're going to just see how far we can get in an hour or so in trying to change this into a iOS app. So as always, if you have questions, if you are stuck, if something is confusing, just pop into the chat and say hello and let me know. I see that in my window over off to the right, so I'll see what I can get to. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, so I have the server running right here. Oops. Server's running locally. I have the directory. We only have a Rails directory so far, so the first thing we're going to do is create that iOS project. And I'm going to pop this in an iOS app. This is going to be RubyFriends. And this is going to be a little bit less teaching and more kind of watching me code and asking questions about it. So if I move too fast, or if I talk about something that is confusing, or I skip over something, just let me know. I'm happy to take a step back and look. So here I'm in the RubyFriends directory, and I'm going to create a new folder in there. I'm going to call it iOS and drop it in there. I'm not going to create a Git repository though, because I already have one. And the first thing I'm going to do is close this. So we have iOS and Rails. Awesome. So in the iOS directory, we have the RubyFriends directory. And that's not what I want. So I'm going to move the iOS RubyFriends directory to iOS 2. Yeah, and then cool. So now we have everything in the iOS directory, the RubyFriends, and then RubyFriends. So we're going to cd into iOS and then open the RubyFriends Xcode project. And here, the first thing that I always like to do with a new project is that I don't like this double RubyFriends thing, so we're going to call this app. And we're going to organize a little bit. We're going to say delegates. We're going to call this resources. And we're going to pop the app delegate and the scene delegate into delegates. All of these into resources. And actually, we're going to do a configuration. Oh, sorry about that. And configuration, we got to put our info plist. I'm not going to use the view controller. Get that out of here. Cool. This is not going to build. It's going to fail because it doesn't know where to find our info plist anymore. So let's tell it where to find the info plist. There we are. So this is app configuration info plist. And let's build that, see if we can build there. We got a question about from Bruce. You think there will be a way to have a template for all the project? A template for like Ruby Friends or for creating new apps with Hotwire Native? Which one do you mean there? I'm also going to change my bundle identifier, Ruby Friends with the dash and capitals. Just, I don't know, I like it better like that. But we'll call it Ruby Friends. Okay, so we should now be able to build Hotwire Native. Yeah, a template's a good idea. Even if it's just like a brand new project in iOS or Xcode or whatever, and then Android Studio. Yeah, I like that. That could be fun. All right, sweet. We got an empty app. Exactly what we wanted. App delegate. We don't need any of this. Whoops. We just need that one function there. We don't even actually need it right yet, but we'll keep it for now. Scene delegate. We're going to get rid of everything. Just getting everything cleaned up so we can add our Hotwire Native integration without having to worry about stuff. What components will be implemented? I don't know yet. We're going to dive in and first we're going to get the baseline working. We're going to get some path configuration working. We're going to make it look nice. Maybe we'll do some push notification stuff, but I haven't gotten that far yet. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so here we have a empty app again. Yep, cool. Let's commit. First, so we don't have, it doesn't give us a git ignore anymore, which is kind of frustrating. So I don't want things like user stuff. Where's all the user stuff? I guess they don't include that anymore. That's nice. So if I add everything in the iOS directory, I have the delegates, the configuration, the color, the app icon, the launch screen, the main project. Oh, there it is. XC user data. Yeah, I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is in the iOS directory, I'm going to create a git ignore, and we're going to go XC user data. Cool. So now we've gotten rid of our XC user data, which got rid of these two files, which are only for me, I don't want them globally committed to the project. And then you know what I'm going to do also? I'm going to close this. I really don't like how Xcode creates spaces in the Xcode projects. It just makes it kind of awkward to open because if I do Ruby Friends, I have to get that / in there. So we're going to move Ruby Friends Xcode project to Ruby Friends Xcode project with no space. And just make sure that works still. If I build, cool. Yeah, still building. Sweet. Initial new Xcode project cleaned up. Sweet. Lucas asks, what are these user data files that you want to ignore? What do they hold? Great question. So in where are those files? So in that thing, we have this Joe Mazzalotti, my username on my Mac. The schemes management plist. So it's kind of, if I go to here with the schemes about how to run different things, we can set a scheme to run maybe that hits production, one that hits development and stuff like that. But sometimes I want one that's just for my local machine. So I can create a scheme here and then unclick shared, and it goes in my user directory instead of the shared directory. It's kind of like a .env file, but more IDE preferences and stuff can go in there, overrides for the project. So we don't want to commit that in. Okay, so when I clicked shared there, it actually, that's interesting. The default scheme, it now added. So we'll just XC share data. Yeah, let's just pop that in. Cool. So, Hotwire Native, let's go. File, new, add package dependencies. We're going to add Hotwire Native, which is probably going to be that first one. Up to next minor, 121, because we're still releasing breaking changes at every minor release. So if this goes to 1.3, I don't want our app to break. Add package, make sure it's set to the library and Ruby Friends target. Do a command B to build it, and we're good. So we have all of our code here. We can start importing it. I am going to import in Hotwire Native no longer being updated, or no, it's still being updated. Very active. I'm one of the maintainers, and we're very active on it. I was saying that minor release versions will introduce breaking changes. And so that's why I only went up to the next minor release instead of the next major release. So until we get to version 2, we're not following semantic versioning 100%. Okay, so here we're in our scene delegate, and what I'm going to do is import Hotwire Native, and then I'm also going to set a global root URL here, which is going to hit our localhost 3000, and then I'm going to force unwrap that. Then we're going to create a private let navigator equals a navigator, and that takes a configuration with a name, main, and we'll go to root URL. I'm wondering if we actually want to start them somewhere else. So if I do root URL, they're going to get bumped on this page, which I feel like is maybe okay. But also if we're in the app, we might change that because we might actually want to go to something like my profile. And if they're not logged in, that will redirect them. Maybe we actually send them to the sign-in page. I don't know yet. But for now, I'm going to give them the absolute URL of this. So in my Rails controller, we have the routes file. We're sending root to static pages home. So I believe that is static pages home here. Maybe just static. Oh, I don't even have a route for that. Okay, so we're never going to redirect anywhere else, so it's actually fine. Sometimes you have a root URL that actually points to the posts index page, and sometimes that gets messed up with Hotwire Native. So I like to usually append something here, but for now, that's good enough. Okay, so the window root navigator is going to be the navigator, or the root view controller is going to be equal to the navigator's root view controller. That pops us into the window there. And then we're going to tell the navigator to start. Let's run that. And once the app finishes loading, yeah, cool, we got it. All right, so we have our website running now in iOS, which is cool. There's obviously a lot of things that just don't look good. I mean, we're seeing a lot of overlap here on that title. This whole bar up at the top feels very non-iOS. The footer. So a lot of things that we can work on there. Also, if I click sign in, it's pushing a screen onto the stack instead of sliding it in from the bottom like a modal. So let's see. We could either go path configuration or cleaning things up. I think I want to go clean things up. I like to make things look pretty before I move on. And yeah, Lucas, been a long time Vim user here, kind of since I got started development, because that's what they threw on us at the agency I worked at. But I am considering the move to NeoVim. So if anyone has any tips or YouTube videos to check that out, I would love to look at them. Okay, so what I want to do here first is iOS side. I want to make this bar up here not transparent. So we're going to go to app delegate. Oh, actually, we're going to commit first. So we got the scene delegate changes with the navigator. We added a new framework to our project, our new package, and that's it. Cool. So we have, this is baseline Hotwire Native integration. Pretty cool. So let's go to our application CSS. I have some I'm using Bootstrap, but I have a bunch of overrides here that just let me do a couple things with line height and some fuller font sizes. But what I actually want to do is create a new native.css file. And native.css is going to contain some things that let us... Wait, no, I got distracted. We're going to do our iOS changes first. We were working on getting this thing to be not transparent up here, this RubyFriends. So let's see. Here we're going to configure appearance. Private func configure appearance. And here we're going to be doing the UI navigation bar dot appearance dot, it is the scroll edge appearance equals a, yeah, I think standard appearance sounds good. There's also like a, what else do we have here? I think that there's one that, there's a opaque. I usually just do this. And then we'll add the tab bar down there at the bottom, or when we have the tab bar. So here now we should have an opaque one. Beautiful. It scrolls, it gets a little frosted glass, which is nice, but it also just makes it feel more like a real website or a real iOS app. So already looking good there. So let's, nice, make navigation bar opaque. Sweet. All right. Now what I want to do is hide some stuff. Like, first, the footer. The footer definitely does not need to be on the iOS app. Like, if I click a GitHub link, I don't know, that just feels very not iOS-y to have this. So that's being displayed in the layout application. Down at the bottom, I have a shared footer. So I could do something that's just like unless Hotwire Native app. And then when I do this, you know, boom, it's gone, but it also still shows up here. So that gets us there pretty quickly. But I don't like having those littered throughout the app. It also changes the rendering cycle a little bit. So instead, I'm going to open up the footer and I'm going to give it a class here called D Hotwire Native None. This is following the conventions of Bootstrap, where you do like D None or DMD None to hide it across all platforms, to hide it across medium-sized screens and up. So we're kind of creating our own view platform of Hotwire Native. And then in our native.css file, we're going to say D Hotwire Native None display none. And of course, important, this is going to be hide elements in Hotwire Native apps. So right off the bat, this won't work, right? Like, this is just a non-entity. We're not including this CSS anywhere. So to include this native.css file, we can go to our layout application, and where we add our style sheet link tag for explicitly for application, we can also add native. Now we add the native one, we refresh on iOS, it's hidden, but also it's hidden on our desktop. So we only want to include that native CSS file if we are in a Hotwire Native app. Now the website has our footer and the iOS app does not. So now we can add custom things to our Hotwire Native app CSS to only have it apply in the, in the app. And we also didn't have to make any changes to the iOS code. It's all done on the server. Question about, are there any performance limitations in Hotwire Native, and is it suitable for building large-scale projects? Is Basecamp a good example? Yeah, Basecamp and Hey both serve millions of users, millions of paying users, I'm pretty sure. So those would definitely be good examples to look at. And performance benefits or performance limitations, if your Rails server is responding quickly, your iOS app and your Android app are going to feel really good on Hotwire Native. If you have, 500 milliseconds at 1 second response times, it's going to feel sluggish here. But under the hood, it's using the same browser JavaScript rendering engine as Safari or Chrome on Android. So if it works there, it should work great here. Hey Justin, yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'm glad you're here. So let's pop up to our root directory. We have a new file, native CSS, and we're going to add whoops, hide elements to Hotwire Native apps, add our new native CSS, and then apply our class. So hide footer in Hotwire Native apps. Cool. So up next, I actually think I'm going to hide that navigation bar entirely. We have some links up there. Like if I go to, I'm signed in here, I have, my profile. Oh, actually look at the mobile version. So the mobile version, we have the notifications button. We have a drop down for my friends. We can see my profile and then also a sign out link. This is where we start to have to make product decisions about our Hotwire Native app. Do we want to add a hamburger menu and just kind of render these things out? Or does it make more sense to have these be their own, let's say, native tabs at the bottom of the screen? I don't know. Like notifications feels very obvious that it should be a tab. I like that as a tab. My profile? I don't know. I mean, I guess, right? Because like share my profile is going to be a big point of this. And my friends is also going to be the big point. So then we need a spot for sign out. We're also going to have things like user preferences and stuff. But I think for now, let's go my profile, my friends, and notifications as the 3 tabs in the app. And we'll figure out all the weird things that happen when you have a tab that requires authentication and all that good stuff. It'll be a good exercise. So the roundabout way of saying that in the nav bar, I'm going to hide this. Entirely in the native apps. So we now just have this beautiful kind of lander page that starts off right at the top with no nav bar, and we're honestly just feeling pretty good so far. So what changes did we make there? We just hit this. So I think I'm just going to amend our previous commit and say hide navbar and footer. I don't need to make a new commit for that. We haven't pushed or anything, so we're still those 4 commits behind. And yeah, we'll push at the end of this. Okay, so I think tabs are next. Well, tabs or authentication, both of those would work. Need that for reference for a second here. I think that it might make sense to do tabs first, and then we can work on authentication, just because it will point us into different areas that we maybe won't see. So yeah, I think let's do tabs. And to do tabs, we're going to look at our iOS app and go back to our scene delegate and rip out our navigator and use our first party tab bar controller, which is pretty cool. So what I am doing off to the side is looking up some documentation real quick. Some document. Cool. All right. Hotwire Native, we're going to get rid of the navigator. Instead, we're going to have a tab bar controller, which is a Hotwire tab bar controller. We don't need this navigator anymore. And the window root view controller is now going to be the tab bar controller directly, and we're going to tab bar controller load an array of tabs. So, oops, don't need to create that twice. We don't have tabs defined, so we need to set or get our tabs from somewhere. I think that I'm going to make it's kind of nice that this is just a global thing. I think I'm going to make a new directory called models, and I'm going to create a tab model. And this is going to be actually completely empty. So it's just going to be an enum tab, and it's going to have a static function, a static property called static let all, and it's going to return an array of tabs. It's actually going to return an array of Hotwire tab. So here, instead of calling tabs, we're going to call tab.all. I like that better because it kind of mimics, not kind of, it mimics Rails. And now we can just keep all of our configuration of the tabs in here. So Hotwire tab, our first one is going to be that my profile. And the URL is going to be that root URL. Oh, already we're coming into some interesting stuff here because we don't know the URL of my profile. Image, we're going to use a UI image. Oh, UI image, system name. Import UI kit to get there. And SF symbols will help us here. Profile. So profile. Okay, we have person, crop, circle. I think I really want person. I think I want this, and then when it's selected, person fill. So let's do person. Let's just load that and see what we get here. Okay, so we have a tab down at the bottom. Same problem though. We're getting that weird, you know, it's transparent. So we're gonna go back to our app delegate and do the same thing for our navigation bar appearance for the tab bar appearance. Give that a run. And cool, now we have an opaque tab bar and an opaque navigation bar. Lucas asks, are those SF symbols like Font Awesome for Bootstrap? Yeah, they are free completely for iOS apps, and they come bundled into the iOS OS, I think. So you can just use them, referencing them by name. You can also do really fun things by like coloring them. And you can do all of this dynamically in the app because they're SVGs. And it's pretty awesome because you can say, you know, with tint and start doing all of these really, really fun things. We're not going to use that just yet, but what we do have is a good commit point because we now have a profile tab. Except it doesn't really go to profile, so we're not going to commit. Is it possible to create camera interface like those in Instagram or Snapchat using native interfaces, elements, or layout? Yeah, you can create a camera. You have full access to the iOS and Android SDK, so if you can build it natively, you can build it in Hotwire Native, or you can have your own. What I like to do is just add a picker. Like if I go to sign in here and I sign in on my account and I go to my profile and edit that, if I go to file upload, like I have access to the photo library right through. I didn't do anything here, you know? And if I had a camera attached to the simulator, which you can't do out of the box, take photo would come up when, you know, I'd click take a photo and it would pop up right here. So there's a lot you get for free with Hotwire Native because it's all just, this is all just web stuff. Okay, so we're signed in now, right? Which I kind of don't want to be signed in. Let's just get rid of that. We have no way to sign out, right? Okay, so we have the person tab or the my profile tab. We're gonna have my friends, which I think there's a double person. Yeah, person.2 or person.3. Am I using an icon anywhere? I don't think I'm using. I feel like person.3 would be better. Let's see. Oh yeah, much better. And then we said we're going to do notifications as the third one. I'm guessing there's a bell symbol or something. Yeah, bell. Sweet. All right, so we have 3 screens that all have their own, you know, stack here, but they all are pointing to the same root URL. So we need so the my friends URL is pretty straightforward. We can just do, you know, appending path friends, right? Because if I look at this URL, it's just /friends. So if I run that, I click my friends, we get prompted to sign in. That actually doesn't seem too bad. If you're not signed in, maybe that is a good use case. URL pending path. This is notifications. So maybe that's actually not too bad. It's the My Profile one that I don't know how we're going to do just yet. Yeah, please sign in before continuing. That actually feels okay. It's not a great onboarding experience, like just to get tossed into this sign in thing. But I think for now that's actually pretty good. Okay, so if they're not signed in, we have no way to know what their profile is. So I think what I'm going to do, instead of doing this logic in the app, I'm going to add a new route that is under profiles. We're going to have something like get profiles me, or maybe mine or something, and that's going to go to profiles. Yeah. I don't know exactly. Well, we can do it in here for sure. Me, it's going to be on the collection, and it's going to go to profiles. Me. I like this because then it's going to be /profiles/me. That doesn't conflate us with any like global namespace of just /me in case there's something that changes. Maybe that also redirects though, but maybe just me is better, and that goes to your profile. So I think that would just be get me to profiles me as my profile. So now we should have if I look at the routes, I have my profile goes to /me. I like that. Let's do that. So our profile controller is going to have new, create, show, edit, update, and then def me. And here, what's interesting about this is that the user has to be signed in. So our application controller has a before action that's, well, the authentication concern is require authentication. So they have to be signed in if they're going to get to here. So they'll automatically get bounced out if they don't have it. But what we want to do is redirect to the current user. It's really the current account.entity. So I have a user, I have an account, and that then goes to a profile. So a user has many accounts through a membership join model. Account belongs to an entity, and then an entity is the polymorphic relationship to a profile. This is all probably over-engineered because I want to make sure that I can account for companies in the future. I got burned by this with Rails devs when I tried to make it, multi-tenancy light. And just never got around to building it because it was going to be way too much work. So I'm doing this all now. So if they don't have an account, well, let's see what happens. So I'm going to just click do /me. Redirects to my profile. Awesome. If I'm not signed in and I go to /me, it should just have me sign in. Right? Please sign in before continuing. But if I don't have a profile, so new, confirm my account, new, okay, that might actually work. So I'm signed in. If I go to /me, there, that's what I was hoping for. So undefined method entity for nil. So there is no account. They only get an account when they create a profile. So what am I doing in other places here? I think I have a before action that's like require account. Yeah, I have it in two different places. So unless current account, redirect to new profile path, please create a profile to add this friend. So assuming this is only going to be accessed from the iOS app, That's fine. So we can do if current.account redirect to else, please create a profile first. I think that should be pretty good. Yeah, please create a profile first. And now when someone opens up the iOS app to /me, they'll first say, hey, you have to sign in. Along with every other one. And then if they sign in as the user with an account, I don't know what that happened. Not sure what just happened right there. What we're going to do is add from the nav bar the sign out button, and we're going to put it on the static home page all the way at the bottom. Actually, for now, all the way at the top. Because I don't want to keep uninstalling and reinstalling the app. Okay, so we have a sign out button. Let's give it a class button outline or button danger. Oops. Cool. So we have a sign out button. And that I think signed us out correctly. Yes, it did. So when we launch the app and we hit /me, we get sent to please sign in before continuing. And then if I click sign in, I don't know what's going on there. What's in our logs? An error. Okay. So this is an interesting issue that Rachel on the Discord has been running into a lot, and I haven't been able to reproduce it, and I think I now know why. What's going on is that when the app launches, it's loading these three screens with forms immediately. They all happen on the same request at the same time, and they're all coming back with the same CSRF token. So I think what's happening is that this one has the valid CSRF token. This one lets us sign in, but these two did not. So if I try to sign in here, well, I'm already signed in, bad example. But the first two, those CSRF tokens have been invalidated because it's being used here also. I think that there's something going on there. So what I think might be a better approach here is that we actually want to, I don't know. This is another product decision where it's like, does the user have to be signed in to use this app? And if so, we can then pop a modal that says, hey, you need to sign in before anything happens. Can we lazy load the tab content? We can't lazy load the tab content. There is no race condition for CSRF tokens. Really? I guess maybe I don't understand it as well as I thought I did. So this tab is going to fail, this tab is going to fail, and this tab is going to work, right? So, I don't know, they all failed. Got the CSRF here. So I'm very confused as to why this would not work. Yeah, there's the CSRF, then we get a new page and this one works. Oh, and it loaded notifications, which is the redirect to of this tab, which is the one we actually. Okay, so showing tabs before they're signed in is definitely a little bit tricky. So what we could do is by default load no tabs or load one tab, And then after they sign in, we could then show the 3 tabs. And then when they sign out, show them again. That would require us to create a bridge component that then listens for when that state changes, which is going to be not non-trivial, but require a little bit of work. Or we can have this, if we present the sign in form as a modal, it could show up on top of the tabs. Not sure. I'm not sure what the best way to do this is. So start screen. So a start screen would be, I mean, this is our start screen, right? And it would only show this. Create my profile. If you're not, forces you to sign in. Like here, let me sign out here. If we only showed this, create my profile says, create an account or sign in. So we're kind of in a good spot there. We sign in, and then we could redirect to something. The tricky part about a start screen is that we then have to know the context of, is the user signed in or not? And I don't like to keep that logic in the iOS app or the Android app. Like, I want all of that to live on the server, but it might be, I don't see a benefit of being able to browse anything unless you're signed in. So maybe the app launches to this. So let's try that. Let's say the app launches, there's tab.all and there's tab.static let launch. We'll go. Oh, we also don't need this anymore. And then this is going to be a Hotwire tab with this actually doesn't matter because we're never going to show, we're going to hide the tab bar, but we'll just do a house. And then so we're just going to load this launch, which is kind of, yeah, there we go. Okay, now we have this. What I'm going to do here is tab bar controller dot tab bar dot is hidden equals tab bar controller dot view controllers count equals 0. So this is saying if there are, or no, equals 1. Less than or equal to 1. Fine. So this is saying if there's only one tab, hide the tab bar, right? So we don't need the tab bar when there's only the one tab. Now we don't have to worry about any like other things going on. But we now have the problem of once the user signs in, so they hit create my profile, they hit sign in, they hit sign in. Now I want to fire something that tells the app, hey, you need to reset in some way. So we could do that through a bridge component. We could do that through a handler, like redirect to a specific URL. But redirecting to a specific URL works really good on iOS. It doesn't work that well on Android. But a bridge component requires us to make sure that we only ever fire that once. Because if we fire it again, then we're going to run into the problem of resetting multiple times. But I think a bridge component's the way to go. So let's do that. So on the server, we'll do, am I using import maps? Yeah, bin import map, pin, Hotwire Native bridge. Cool. And now we have application.js, or sorry, import map, RB. I don't know why it then pins stimulus. Oh, because it wants to include stimulus directly instead of from the turbo rails and this gem file, because there's a stimulus thing. Yeah, stimulus rails is where that was coming from originally. So now we have it bundled and we have it pinned. So I'm guessing that vendor now shows, yeah, stimulus.js in there. Nah. Let's not do that. Okay, so now we're back to just using stimulus min from the gem. Okay, bin rails g bin rails stimulus bridge authentication. Is that going to be? Yeah. Authorization. It's actually authorization. So this will be an authorization controller. So authorization controller. This is not going to import from hotwired stimulus, but hotwired bridge. Actually, I forgot. So let's look at native reference bridge components. I was way off. Hotwire native bridge. And then we're going to extend from bridge component. Cool. And then we need a static component equals authorization. And then on connect, we're going to fire if they're authorized or not authorized. So in our layout application, we're going to render, I think, a session. I like that. Session and then bridge. Let's do session meta. And then app views session meta.html.drb. And here we're going to have a tag.div, and it's going to have a data attribute, right? And this data attribute is going to say controller is the bridge authorization. And then let's give it some static data. No, static, is it data? Pop over to stimulus. Values. Static values equals, and we're going to say authentic. Wait, I'm getting authenticated and authorized confused. Authorized means they're signed in, which is actually what we're doing, but I think that we're actually going to just change it to authenticated and not do authorized, because that's what everything else uses in the app. So we just need to rename this. That actually does make sense. Even if the logic is going to say, hey, are they signed in? We can look at our for a specific page, we can say, hey, you're not signed in, and then send that over the wire. Or sorry, you're not. Yeah, no, authentication is right. Because authorized means you're allowed to see something. No, this is exactly what we want. Okay. Data bridge authentication authenticated value is authenticated. Now we can say on connect, super.connect, this.send authenticated connect and const authenticated equals this dot authenticated value. Great. So now on every page load, we're going to send over the wire if the user is authenticated or not, essentially as a Boolean. So let's pop back open our application. Let's create a components directory. And in the components directory, we're going to create an authentication component. And I'm going to copy paste from the documentation because it's a little bit easier. Just to give us our shell. I like to do this pretty often. And button is going to be authentication. Cool. Okay, if message.name equals connect event. For now, we're just going to print the message.json data. Cool. Let's run that. This is a quick test to see if we missed anything. 500 error. Missing template, session meta. I called it session meta. Layout application should be sessions meta. Yeah, thank you, Lucas. Retry that. Cool, we got that. And then, did we get anything logging? Nope, because we didn't register out our component. So in app delegate, we're going to configure appearance. We're going to configure Hotwire. Private func configure. And here we're going to say hotwire.register import Hotwire Native. Register bridge components and the authentication component. Cool. All right, now that it's registered, it'll be in the user agent and we should be able to see our logs. And we do. Hooray. So, authenticated. True. Is that correct? It is correct. We are authenticated. How does bridge component send messages between the Rails views and native apps? Good question. So, there's a special function on the bridge component called send that takes 3 parameters: the event name, properties, and then a callback, which we could do function like this, and this is a callback. But we only need to send these 2, so we're only going to send those 2. And then this data is then sent over the wire as JSON right here. That's the JSON data that I pulled out. So if I put these side by side, I printed out the message.json data. So message.event is connect, that's that first one. Message.json data is the second parameter. And here we get authenticated true, along with some metadata it's automatically populated. So the view itself is this, right? It's the stimulus binding of this component. The actual sending of the message happens in the stimulus controller, where we're calling this .send of bridge component. And then we can also, in here, we can reply to that message with different data attributes and stuff. But for now, we want to actually pull out the, we want to pull out the authenticated as a Boolean, and we don't want to parse that JSON ourselves. We want to use a struct, and this is going to be message data, which is going to be decodable, which means we can turn it from JSON or string to a first party, not a first party, a object or a struct here, and this is going to have a authenticated Boolean, right? So now we're matching the hash that we got sent over the wire here. So if message.connect, we're going to say, we're going to have a private function called toggle tabs. That feels weird. think we can just do it all on receive. So guard let data equal, and this is going to be of type message data equals message dot data else return. So this is saying parse out the data as JSON and cast it to message data, otherwise return. So we're getting one of these objects. And then here we can say if authenticated, whoops, if data do something else, do something. So here's where we can start to say, you know, set that tab bar or load those tabs or what have you. What I think we're going to do here is hard code it all in and then come back and clean it up. So private var view controller is going to be a UI view controller, optional, and it's going to be the reference to the delegate dot destination as UI view controller. That gives us a reference to the Hotwire web view controller that's triggering this. And then we can grab the tab bar controller from that, view controller dot tab bar controller as and these are all optional chaining, so if one of them fails, we'll just get nil. So if they're authenticated, we're going to say, hey, tab bar controller dot load tab dot all. Otherwise, tab bar controller dot load tab dot launch. So this, I think, will work. The problem is that it's going to happen on every single page load. So we need a way to kind of cache. Wait, it's rare people are actually coding on their own and not letting the feelings to convert coding session to a vibe coding session. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy getting help from an AI, but I also really enjoy doing this, and this is how you learn. So we're doing it this way. So if data.authenticated, we actually want to check and the tab bar controller dot view controllers dot count doesn't equal tab dot all dot count, right? So we're saying if we're not already showing all the tabs, show all the tabs, and then this is actually going to be else if tab bar controller dot view controllers dot count doesn't equal tab dot launch dot count. That's a little ugly. I'll probably come back and clean that up. I also don't really love that we're just grabbing this and assuming it's a tab bar controller. There's a lot of dangerous casting going on here, but let's give it a go. So we're going to do some logging, print function. So we received data.authenticated. And then here we're going to say tabs.count. And then in these, we're going to say loading all tabs. And then loading launch tabs. Let's give that a go, see what happens. Oh yeah, infinite loop. So I think what's happening is that when we first launch, we're getting... Let's set a breakpoint and see why. I think that we're actually seeing tabs as 0 on one of these. Oh, we have 3 tabs. So we get authenticated as true. Tabs.count is nil. So we have no tabs. So we're loading all the tabs. And then it's coming back here for that next message. Authenticated is true. Tabs.count is 3. Loading launch tabs again. So, loading launch tabs. Oh, these can't be combined. We have to split these out. because we need here if this has to be else if data dot authenticated not. I think that's what was the problem was, because we were always just saying, hey, set it back to you know, yeah. Oh. Infinite loop. No. And then, of course, remember how we had this right here? Hey, Mike, we are not loading a different tab set. Well, I guess we are, but we're loading one tab set if you're signed in. If you're one, like, launch sign-in screen before you sign in, and then once you are signed in, we're going to load multiple tabs. But not specific to the user. So what's happening here is that we've launched our app, but we've also hidden the tab bar, and this code isn't getting written, isn't getting recalled, right? Or called again. So we have to add that here. Well, I guess we could do that outside. This is getting sloppy. We'll clean it up later, but for now, we just want to get it to work. Okay, so it should have called this it called authenticated true, tabs count loaded, loading all tabs. Authenticated true, tabs count 0, loaded all tabs. And then here are the 3 times for the tabs that loaded, the 3 tabs that loaded, 1, 2, 3, we got no changing, no launching of tabs. But we did get it twice. So I'm curious if I clear out here, our logs, are we getting 4 requests or are we getting 6 requests? Okay, so we have get root 1, get root 2, me 3, 4, 5, 6. We're getting 6, but one of those is from a redirect, so we're getting 5. 5 for 3 tabs. That's 1 more than I would have expected. Why authenticated true is being called 3 times, like for each tab is it checking its own, and each tab is basically sending authenticated messages. That's why I have 3 instances, right? Yeah, so the second time we see this, right here, this is when each one of these 3 pages load. Right, if I refresh this, we're going to get it again, because it's firing and every time any page is loaded. But up here, we're getting it once when the app launches, and we're loading all tabs, and then I don't know why this is happening, what the second one is. I'm okay with us making like a test request and saying, hey, are you logged in? Yes, okay, cool, do this thing to the app, or not, but I'm confused as to why we are getting that 5th one. So what I'm gonna do here is add another link to the profile show page, and here we're gonna add that sign out button up to the top. I mean, that worked pretty well. So that actually signed us out perfectly. We killed all the tabs and worked really well. Wow. So I like that. Let's see. Create my profile. We're going to sign in. That works fine. Oh, wow. That worked really well. It's pretty good. It looks pretty good. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, let's clean up. I don't care about these logs anymore. That will get us somewhere. What I don't like is that we have knowledge of... I'm okay that we know about that this is a Hotwire tab bar controller. What I don't like is that we have to know which tabs to load. And we also have that in the scene delegate. What I want is an extension and this logic, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an extension on the Hotwire tab bar controller that's going to say load launch tabs and load authenticated tabs. And now here we can do this. And then do the same thing. And I'm going to rename all to authenticated. Okay, so, but we still need a way to expose the launch tabs. Oh wait, this is actually not that good because I'm not sure about Swift, but don't have any shared auth state that we can manage instead of calling this check again and again. I'd rather not keep state anywhere. You know, like this is letting us not keep state. We can just let the server tell us, hey, they're signed in or they're not signed in, and we can just listen when we're being reactive. If we have to hold state, we have to then clear that state or update that state when things happen. And the way that this works, we're not, you know, it's going to fall through the else most of the time here. So the tricky part here is that we still have to expose how many tabs are in the launch array without exposing it to, oh, we can do it in here. Right, so we can always call load launch tabs safely. So if view controllers dot count doesn't equal tab dot launch dot count, we load the tabs and then we hide it if the view controllers count equals 1. And then the same thing here, if view controllers dot count doesn't equal tab dot authenticated dot count, do the same thing. And we can have a private function hide tab bar if one view controller. So here we can set the window to the root view controller, and then we can say tab bar controller dot load authenticated tabs. And I'm doing authenticated tabs here because we're going to assume that the user is going to, like, assuming all of the launches of this app over the course of time, we're going to assume that it's going to launch with a signed in user more often than a signed out user. So we're going to optimize for that experience. Even though when someone is not signed in, we're going to make 3 network requests to our server and then bounce back. So if I were to do like load, what did I call it? Launch tabs, and the user signed in, it's going to load that one tab. Oh, I'm not signed in. It would look like this. It's actually not that bad. Maybe that is a better approach. And then we're just like only making 1 additional request for every. Oh no, but see how much smoother that is? We get the tab bar loaded on launch. And then if they're not signed in and we launch it. Yeah. So this is now actually interesting because we now know the logic of this. So when we want to load authenticated tabs, we actually want to show the tab bar always. And that means that we can do this. We can animate it. And we don't need that. Okay, so authentication component, we don't need this. We don't want to do any of that. All we want to say here is if data.authenticated, tab bar controller, show or load authenticated tabs, else if else tab bar controller dot load launch tabs. All this goes away. We have no more logic in our component, which is really nice. And these are safe because they won't load if they already in the right state. So we get that, and now when I click, okay, so we saw that animate away because we're not signed in here. And then when we are signed in, we get that animating from the bottom. That's pretty cool. And then we click sign out. The only thing that I would like to do is I wish it hid it before it loaded those tabs. So I wonder if I can just switch these two lines and hide it and then load the tabs. Then we are always showing and hiding those 3 tabs. We're also clearly not persisting our login state for some reason. Is there a callback on this? No. It's not the end of the world. It just would have looked a little bit cleaner, I think. But let's see what's going on with that. So if I sign into my account, let's just pull to refresh to make sure we're persisting everything. And then it should be... Okay, no, I was wrong. It actually is working. Okay, this feels really good. I want to move this extension somewhere, so I'm going to create a new extensions and then a Hotwire Native directory, and then create a Swift file, which is a Hotwire tab bar controller plus authentication. And we're going to just move this file in there and import Hotwire Native. Sweet. Awesome. I like this a lot. Okay. So, So we got a lot here. I'm probably going to add the Hotwire Native bridge first. So let's add new Rails vendor, or let's just add Rails vendor and then add p Rails config, import maps. Yeah. So add native bridge package. Lucas asks, why can't we just show hide the tabs with animation? If you hide the tabs for non-authenticated users, then what's the point of having launch tab at all? We would be making 3 requests instead of just 1 every time the user got to that page, because when we load tabs, we are loading all 3, or I should say all of them. It also means that we'd have to change the tab. Like right now we have 2 different tabs. The authenticated tab is /me, and the non-authenticated tab is just root URL. So we actually can keep our configuration of of where they go if they're signed in or not right here, instead of having logic in our bridge component or something that's like, hey, we should you're not signed in, do this thing. Okay, now I think we want to add everything else, because this is all part of our authentication flow and our tabs flow. So here we have the authentication component, which looks pretty good to me. Hotwire Native, this is all the tab stuff, the Hotwire, the bridge component, our tab bar controller loading authenticated tabs, our extension, which we built, our actual tab model, the me route for redirecting to the current entity, our bridge component for the web, our metadata for the session. We don't want this, we definitely want that, and we don't want that, and then our route. So our only diff right now should be our 2 kind of tests for signing out. Looks good. And this is going to be add tabs and authenticated bridge component to toggle. Too long. Awesome. This is looking good. This is looking really good. Don't need SF symbols anymore. Don't need that. We're going to just see how many... Look at that. We got even more people as we're talking today. Okay, so we're in a really good spot. We have tabs. We have that sign out button. Obviously, we're going to get rid of that sign out button because it's just hard-coded in. We have our notifications. We have our friends, and we can click through these and see everyone. Pretty cool. Let's stash this because it looks bad. Yeah, there we go. So we have Ruby Friends, Carol on Ruby Friends. I think I want to change this title, right? Like I don't need to have it to say Ruby Friends every time. I'd rather just say Carol or friend or something. Same thing here. My profile, yeah, like for me, I probably want it to say me. Modals on Bootstrap are looking good enough, right? Like, yes, it's not a native modal, but maybe we could convert it to a native modal. That'd be fun. Because this is what I made. I made sure to build this out as this is a native modal that gets presented, or sorry, a web modal that gets presented with JavaScript via Bootstrap. But if I also visit my profile /share, I get the page itself, so no modal. So this works with a turbo frame and without a turbo frame, which I was really excited for, which means that if we want, we could intercept it on iOS and Android and show this as a native modal, which could make it just feel a little bit more native for sure. Also, we don't have any path configuration set up where this is, just pushing a screen onto the stack instead of presenting a screen. So I think that's probably what we want to work on. Next. But before we move on to that, I'm just gonna take a quick break and poke around stuff. Any questions? Pop them into the chat. I'm gonna come back in just 2 minutes here. Okay. Probably spend another 15, 20 minutes or so, just because I'm excited to work on this. Question about when do I usually go for native versus web login? I try to go for web login all the time. Unless there's a very specific reason to have to go native login, web is always going to be a better choice with Hotwire Native. You just keep all the logic on your server. Even if you're doing native Google Auth or native sign in with Apple, those can be bridge components that only do the minimum native stuff and then send you something back to the web. So in the past, I always went native login because it was harder to manage cookies and tokens and stuff, especially on Android. That's all been resolved pretty much, and now we can do everything on the web, just like we're doing for this app here. So web until you can't. Okay, so let's do this path configuration stuff, right? I click edit, and it pushes this a form onto the stack, and then I hit update, and I have this. I have to go back, and I get the form again. It acts just like the web, but also we can do better than that on iOS and on Android with something called path configuration. So I'm gonna open up my routes first here. I'm gonna have a new section here for Hotwire Native. It's going to be namespace Hotwire, and we're going to have a resources called configurations, and it's actually going to be nothing. On the collection, we're going to have get iOS. To, I think, just on collection. And we'll eventually have, Android here. So someone earlier had mentioned that there's something called grep with the routes. Lucas mentioned you can pass -grep to Rails routes. So I'm going to try that. So bin Rails routes, and then pass in grep. I'm guessing I have to give it something. So let's look for Hotwire. Cool. Oh, that's great. Learned something new today. Thanks, Lucas. This is exactly what we want. /hotwire /configurations /iOS, and it's going to be the iOS Hotwire configurations. I kind of wish that was configuration, but I don't really care about that because we're probably never gonna name it. This is going to be in our controllers. Let's do that one first. Hotwire, and then configurations controller. And I have an admin nest. I just want to see if okay, I'm doing module. Module, Hotwire, class, configurations controller. And I know before we even run into it, application controller, we're going to want to skip the authentication. So we want to do allow unauthenticated access, because this is going to just be open even before they sign in or after. So yeah. .ios, render JSON, settings, empty for now, rules, an array. And here we're going to give it a rule that says paths. I always forget. Native, iOS, path configuration. Oh, thank you. Patterns. We're going to match patterns, which is an array, and give it properties. And those properties, we're going to do context modal to present that as a modal. Our patterns are going to be /new and /edit. See you, Mike. Thanks for joining. So this will match anything that ends in /new and ends in /edit to say, hey, present this as a modal built into Hotwire Native. In the iOS app, in our app delegate, where we configure Hotwire, we're going to say Hotwire load path configuration from a server, our root URL, pending path Hotwire. I think that there was a better way to do this. Components. So I can say Hotwire configurations iOS.json. Okay, let's look at our logs and see if that throws any errors. So far, so good. So if I click this edit link, which is going to be a /edit, it should open as a modal. Sweet. Look at that. We got a modal. I like that much better because now when I click update profile, it will give us this flash message. But interesting here, we have the screen on the stack twice. And what's going on there is that the URL for this is /me. but the URL when I redirect is not /me. It's the actual profile URL. So it doesn't, Hotwire Native doesn't know how to kind of collapse those two. So let's take a look at that. We're connected now to this emulator. Or sorry, this screen, right? Yeah. We can do navigator dot location. No, location.href. Profiles. JCSR. Okay. Now what is it? The same. So this, I think, is a part of, so what's supposed to happen is that this screen is supposed to get not pushed, but just replaced. But what I think is happening is that it is, when we visit /me, Hotwire Native thinks that we're on the me page, even though we got redirected. So what I'm going to do is go to the profile form. And in the form, I'm going to give it a data turbo action replace, which Hotwire Native should get and then just always do a replace. Let's see if it works with a modal. Click edit, update. Nope. Is it turbo action? Yeah, I think it is turbo action. But this doesn't work on a form, right? Doesn't it have to be somewhere in HTML or something? Let's try again. No. Let's see what the form looks like. Data turbo action replace. Okay, so it is, we are getting what we want, but we're not getting the behavior that we want. So I'm confused why. Let's dig in to the source. Navigator. So when we route a URL, this gets called. Oh, this is the public function. We need to go to the private one. Okay, so this is our first URL. Let's just, yeah, 1, 2, 3, and then, cool. So when we hit edit, we can look at the proposal dot properties, and we can see that we're getting the modal here, right? That's what we got from the path configuration. Let me continue. Now when we click update profile, what is our proposal here? We have no properties. We have all of this HTML, which I think is in the response. I'm confused as to what, oh, we are getting replace. We are getting an action replace. So that is coming through correctly. I think it's because it's coming from a modal. I don't know if that's a bug in Hotwire Native or just something that isn't been addressed yet, but trying to replace from a modal is just dismissing the screen. So when we route here, it's not an alert. Sure, pull to refresh. Dismiss modal if needed. So let's see why we're getting into that. So we're not dismissing the modal. Default. Oh, it's coming into default, not replace. That's interesting because proposal dot options dot action is replace. So I wonder why presentation is not getting hit. That's interesting. Oh, because it's coming directly from properties. So this might actually need to be updated, that proposal.presentation should also pull from, if it was replaced and it's default. Yeah, because look, it would dismiss and then replace the last view controller. So that is interesting. I wonder where this is set. This is from the path properties. Query string presentation. Also path properties. Modal. And those are on the tests. Yeah, that's interesting. So we could kind of hack it by looking at our configurations controller and then saying anytime you visit a profile URL, do a replace. But that would cause a problem because anytime we visit a URL in the main stack, it would get replaced. So what we could do instead is fix it on the server side, and in our profiles controller, after we update, instead of redirecting to profile, we could redirect to me path. I think that's the right URL. Use my handy grep. Search for me. My profile is what we named it. See if that works. Now the URLs are the same, or should be the same. All right, we got some thinking to do on this one. I'm not sure what the right answer is just yet, but pushing that new screen onto the stack is a bit of a pain. These all work. These all should work fine. Because this is all actually just Hotwire. Yeah. And then notifications. Let's sign out. Oh, well, let's commit this. This is actually this still gives us a good start with path configuration. Not that. Oh, and we don't want that. So let's have our sign out buttons back. Ooh. That is not what we want. So that's interesting because it's presenting our sign-in screen as a modal and not killing all of our tabs and stuff. So that might be not what we want there. Okay, we're not signed in. Create my profile. That's nice that happens in a modal. Sign in. Cool. That can be a replace to get that working. Oh, did we not have tabs? I didn't look. That's not good though. We don't want that to present as a modal. Oh yeah, look, we're not getting tabs. And I think that I know why that's happening at least, but okay. So you know what? I'm not going to actually commit this because this isn't not working the way we want. We're going to have to think a little bit more about those. Definitely think about a little bit more of those. But I think that is going to do it for me today. Hour and a half. We made a lot of progress. We got an iOS app working with dynamic tabs. So, you sign in, you get your 3 tabs. You sign out, you get your no tabs, but really 1. Every time that user signs in and out, we don't have to manage state in the iOS app at all. We only have to worry about it in the controller on the Rails side. Not even the controller, the meta tag, and it's already pulling from the authenticated helper method. So if you want to check out Ruby Friends, I encourage you to do so. It is RubyFriends.app. Sign up there, create your profile, give me a friend. You'll see that very obviously when you work through that. And if you're looking for more Hotwire Native content, check out Mazzolati.com. I have a free newsletter that comes out every week. I have a book that is just for Rails developers, so really helpful in figuring out how to build this as a Rails developer, and it talks through iOS and Android. So definitely that a look if you can. We have a question in the chat about who is number 100. I don't know. I haven't looked yet, so I will find out and announce it in my next newsletter update. I'm going to send them a little something to say thank you, and there'll be a little thing on Twitter for that. So I'll stick around for another minute or two, but if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. Other than that, I am done for the day. Thank you so much for joining. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more live stuff, or comment below on this if there's anything else that you'd like to see me cover in a future Hotwire Native live session. Thank you everyone for joining. I had a really good time.